Good morning, everybody. Nowadays, we hardly hear of anybody suffering from leprosy. It's been medically controlled for the most part. So there are no more lepers who are supposed to be going around with little bells, proclaiming to the whole world, I am unclean, I am unclean. That was the law in Leviticus that we heard from the first reading. A leper is not acceptable. A leper is one whom you feel repelled, you recoil, you refuse, you reject. Lepers don't count. Lepers are the absolutely cancelled individuals, even before the word cancel culture was invented. It is cancel culture at its worst, and it devolves upon the very patient himself, the one who already is suffering untold misery, to tell the whole world, get away from me. You should not draw near to me, for I am unclean. The leper in today's gospel did the only thing he probably could ever think of. But he was not repelled by the Lord. The Lord did not recoil, the Lord did not reject him. The Lord did not raise his eyebrows on him. And he had a beautiful prayer, probably a prayer that we all could learn from. Because no one here can say, you have not been rejected at any given time in your life. You were. I know as a counselor, the saddest stories I hear are people who are rejected by their very own parents. Parents always say we don't have favoritism, but it's a fact. You prefer certain children to others, and you're not even aware of it. And it shows. It is a very sad thing when counseling young people, they shed bitter tears, and those bitter tears are born of the knowledge and the realization that they are rejected in many ways by the very people who should be caring for them. They are canceled. So we Filipinos we're a very racist culture. Marami tayong tawag sa mga maiitim. In LA, the Filipino gangs are teaming up with the blacks, and the Mexicans team up with the Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese team up with the Mexicans. And during their battle royale between gangs in LA, in Los Angeles, of course, they side with their kakosa and reject yung hindi nila kasama, yung hindi nila kabatak, hindi nila kakulay, yung hindi nila kasama sa samahan. So, in those gangs, if you mention the word Temits, the blacks know whom you're referring to. They learn it from Filipinos. Temits means yung mga negro, yung mga maiitim, yung mga ulikba. We have very hurtful words for people we reject. Matandang hukluban. I'm very sensitive to that now that I'm no longer a spring chicken. We have very cute ways, but very real ways to cancel people out and treat them as lepers. Amoy lupa. When you reject elders and call them amoy lupa, that's the cancel culture at our cultural worst. When you cancel out the old because they are in the pre-departure area, and therefore they don't need to be listened to anymore. But the real pain of the leper is really bordering on the fact that they are not validated as persons, they are not recognized, they are unwanted, they are despised, they are rejected, they are considered dirty, and according to the law, anyone who touches them will also be unclean. That is the law. And the worst thing was that lepers, even if they believed in the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of David and Solomon, they were not allowed to enter the temple. Can you imagine a time when you will have some malady and you are told you cannot enter the national shrine of Mary Help of Christians? That is the ultimate rejection, because presumably even God Himself rejects you. But today the good news is that God rejects no one. And I'd like you to hold on to this. God rejects no one. No matter how rejected you are by the world around you. I must tell you this because I have a very strong sense of justice. I've been teaching social justice for decades. And I know that there are oppressors who oppress in the name of false narratives and revised histories. Like Putin revised his history. He quotes history left and right, but only what he likes. He never talks about the origin of Russia starting from Kiev, the Kiev Rus. But he talks of Kiev and Ukraine as belonging to the Russians, and that Ukraine has no right to exist as a sovereign state. Tell that to the Chinese Communist Party, who treats 6 countries in Southeast Asia as vassals: Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, the Philippines. Who gave them the right to rule and control everybody else? But we're talking here about the bad news of leprosy. And the bad news of leprosy is not half as bad as the bad news of what it represents, which is the rejection of God. Because even before we can even think of God rejecting certain individuals and punishing them like Job without having done anything, it is us, in all truthfulness, who reject Him. And that is worse than physical leprosy. And today the Lord tells us what it means to be a leper and what it means to be one who begs God. And our response is, I call on the Lord, and He has given joy to my heart. I call on the Lord in I forgot exactly what we answered after the first reading, but something like that. I called on the Lord in His mercy, and I rejoice, knowing that I am not despised. During the time of the Lord, the Jews, there were no quarantines. They were told to pitch camp outside the community. You have no right to be sa karamihan. And it happens now. If you voted for the wrong candidates, you don't receive your 4 Ps. I heard it from you. I heard it from several of you. Pag hindi mo binoto yung dapat mong ibinoto nung nakalipas na eleksyon, wala kang 4 Ps. You're treated as a leper. And this happens in a Christian country. This happens in a Christian country where every time our lives revolve around the lives of Dominic Roque and who is that girl, Bea Alonso, or yung Catherine. Diyan umiikot ang buhay natin. At I don't go for these social media, but I see them. I cannot help but see them. The cruelty of Filipinos who condemn either Bea or who condemn Dominic Roque for things that they're never sure of. I don't know, do they have any, are they privy to the private lives of these individuals? But this is how we treat one another in social media. The freedom wall that I was talking about last week. They tried to destroy me because I caught them cheating and stealing money from rich students. And then they try to cancel you. We are cruel, we can be cruel, we can be unchristian. Today the Lord tells us that there is a way that is different. And what is this? Our lifeline to God. The only lifeline we have is the lifeline of prayer. And the leper came to Jesus, and what did he do? He didn't say, "Oh, di ba magaling ka magpagaling, pagalingin mo ako." Yung attitude na bill mo ko niyan, bill mo ko noon. Akin na ito, akin na rin yan. Mining business. Look at our politicians who destroyed all the forests in Eastern Summer. And Bohol, he's still alive. Who, I can multiply these questions. But the leper didn't say, pagalingin mo ako, talagang magaling ka. He said, he knelt down. What a beautiful sight. Nanikluhod, nagsumamok, ibinaba ang sarili na lamang at sukat, kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." What a beautiful prayer. He didn't say, "Lord, please heal me or else, if you will, you can make me clean." A beautiful prayer of faith, a beautiful prayer of hope. This is the lifeline of somebody who has nowhere to turn to. A lifeline of somebody who has no entitlement, and he knows his place. I come de profundis. From the depths I cry to you, O Lord, have mercy on me in your kindness. But what is the good news? Even before the Lord could speak, he did the unthinkable. The Lord touched him and said to him, stretched out his hand, touched him. Unthinkable, because that would make Jesus also unclean according to the letter of the law. But the Lord of the law, the God who is the supreme legislator, knew the right thing. And the only thing that man needed was that lifeline that only he could give. And he never refused him and said, I do will it, be made clean. We have a lot of leprosies now. We don't have physical leprosy anymore. Wala nang tala leprosarium, I don't hear news about it anymore. Wala nang Damien the leper na pagaling na ng antibiotics at kung ano-anong gamot. Pero ang daming leprosy ngayon, yung mga tinatangi, hindi nyo pinakausap, yung inaaway ninyo, yung hindi nyo pinapansin, hindi nyo tinatao, yung hindi nyo binavalidate, hindi nyo pinapahalagahan, yung mga taong hindi nyo pinapansin sa buhay nyo, yung mga anak na hindi ninyo inahalagahan, yung mga nagkalat sa Sukat Road, alas 10 na ng gabi, nagkalat pat namamalimos, hinahayaan ng mga magulang. Yan ang bagong leprosy. Yung mga hindi kakosa ng mga namumuno, yung nagsasabing humiwalay na tayo at gawin natin ang Mindanao bilang Singapore. That's leprosy. You're breaking away from the body politic. And you know, in systems theory, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The whole is always bigger than the sum of its parts. If you change a part, you change the whole. So, yung kung ugali natin, many years ago, I presided in New York over at a mass where I don't know whether it was Lions International or the other one. Those who had 4 sayings painted on anyway, yung mga samahan ng mga NGOs. And it was the Filipino-American chapter of the Lions. I'm not sure if it was Lions. And then 4 years after, I presided over 2. Naghiwalay na yung taga New York at itiniwalag yung mga taga New Jersey. Only the Hudson River separates. Jersey City and New York. Pero in 4 years, nag-away na yung mga Pinoy. Tulad dito, gumawa ka ng isang samahan, maya-maya manganganak, mag-iiba kasi hindi nanalo yung kanilang manok. And then we divide ourselves. And here's one na naturingan dating presidente at isa pang naturingang Senate President. We want to be separate from the Philippines and make ourselves like Singapore. Hello, congratulations. How can you make yourself like Singapore? Yun yung bangketa, hindi natin maalagaan. Yun yung e-bikes, hindi natin masolusyonan. Yung ating pagkamakasarili, hindi natin magbigyan ng sagot at katugunan. Today, the Lord tells us, look at the bigger picture. And that bigger picture has to do not with your pain. Your pain is intrinsically yours. That is yours. Huwag mo idamay ang buong bayan. Kung minumura mo ang Diyos, huwag mo idamay ang lahat ng Pilipino. Kung galit ka sa nakaupo ngayon, huwag mong idamay ang lahat. Ngayon, what is this bigger picture? The bigger picture has always been the good news. And that God is a God of compassion. God is a God of healing. God is a God of wholeness, and wholeness is holiness. Sanitas, sanctitas, they're all interrelated. Holiness has to do with health, being whole and being holy, and then being happy. The answer of the Lord is a very encouraging one. We may be facing all sorts of problems. We may be unwanted kasi hindi ka na makapagbigay ng donasyon sa simbahan kasi retired ka na. Hindi ka na binibisita ng mga pare kasi retired ka na. Wala ka ng pera. Hindi ka na pinapansin ng mga inaanak mo kasi alam na Merry Christmas lang ang sasabihin mo sa kanila. Hindi ka na pinapansin. The saddest story I ever experience in my life was having known Mama Kaling. Mama Kaling, I met her in Jersey City many years ago. Pinag-aral niya, nagbanat ng buto sa Amerika bilang nurse or caregiver. Pinag-aral lahat ng pamangkin sa probinsya. At nung excited siya nung nag-retire, uuwi na ako sa amin sa probinsya upang makasama ko yung aking mga mahal na pamangkin. Ayun, nung nagkasakit, ni isang pamangkin wala. She was treated like a leper. She needed a lifeline. That lifeline never fails you and me. That lifeline is the one who said, I will it. Be made whole. What a beautiful thing to bring home. God wills not your pain, but your health, your wholeness, your holiness.